This is a haunted hotel room. So far, 56 people have died here, under bizarre circumstances. Some hanged themselves, some jumped out the window. The ways they went were all over the map. But the creepiest part, every single one of them died within an hour. Because of all this, the hotel manager shut room 1408 down for good. Until one day, a man named Jack showed up asking to book the room. He said he was a horror novelist who'd never bought into any of that ghost nonsense, and that he'd already stayed in plenty of hotels where people had died, all in the name of hunting down inspiration, and not a bit scared. After a lot of pestering from Jack, he finally pried the key to 1408 out of the manager's hands. Jack headed up to 1408, and at first glance the place seemed totally ordinary. It was clean, laid out pretty much like any other room. The only slightly creepy thing was the paintings on the walls. He figured the manager had cooked up those stories just to stir up buzz for the hotel. But just as Jack opened the window to take in the night view, the radio by the bed suddenly clicked on by itself. When he turned around, he was blown away. Not only was the radio playing, but 2 chocolates had appeared on the nightstand out of nowhere, and the toilet paper in the bathroom had been swapped out for a fresh roll. Someone must have slipped in while his back was turned. Jack started tearing the room apart looking for them, but after turning the place upside down, he couldn't find a soul. The AC happened to be busted, and the room was stifling. After calling the front desk for repairs, Jack pulled out a UV flashlight and started scanning the room, only to find bloodstains smeared across every corner. The faces of all the people who died there started flashing through his head. Right then, the AC repairman showed up. Jack wrestled with the door for a while before getting it open, but once it did, the repairman just stood outside sizing things up. Refusing to come in, he said, "I'll talk you through the fix from out here," making it crystal clear he wasn't setting foot in that room. Jack followed his instructions and had the AC running in no time. He turned around to grab the guy a tip, only to realize the repairman had already bolted in terror. Even after all that, Jack had no intention of leaving. He pulled the door shut with a thud, not knowing that one careless move had sealed his fate forever. With the AC fixed, the room felt pleasant again, and Jack grabbed a bottle of liquor to take a swig. Then, bam, the radio blasted again out of nowhere, scaring the daylights out of him. He angrily killed the power, but then some eerie numbers popped up on the display. A 60-minute countdown. Jack instantly remembered what the manager had told him. Nobody lasts an hour in 1408. Watching the seconds tick down, Jack started to panic. He grabbed a recorder and began narrating the nightmare unfolding around him. Mid-sentence, all the sound just cut out. Even the bustling street outside the window went dead silent. Jack wondered for a second if he'd gone deaf. Before he could figure out what the hell was happening, the window came slamming down on his fingers out of nowhere. Injured and falling apart, Jack rushed to the bathroom to rinse off the wound. But as he was washing, the water suddenly turned into boiling hot liquid, nearly cooking his hand off. He stumbled out and bandaged himself up, only for the radio to fire up again and start playing a song. The lyrics said the game was just getting started. After listening for a second, Jack spun around and yanked the cord out of the wall. But even with the power cut, the countdown kept right on going. Right then, the front desk called. Jack frantically told them he gave up and begged them to check him out. But the front desk just kept rattling off something about pastries and room service. Talking to them was like talking to a wall, so Jack grabbed his bags and made a break for the door. But if leaving were that easy, those 56 people would still be alive. The door wouldn't budge. Jack grabbed the key, and to his horror, it snapped right off in the lock. Then the doorknob broke off in his hand. He knew now he was in deep trouble. He ran to the window and started yelling for help. That's when he noticed the lights on in the building across the way. But someone was sitting over there, and they'd spotted him. The person started signaling back with their hands. But then Jack realized the guy's gestures were mirroring his own exactly. He waved, the man waved. He picked up a lamp, and the man across the way picked up a lamp too. When Jack looked closer, he realized the figure across the way wasn't a stranger at all. It was himself. A short-haired woman suddenly swung a knife at Jack a few times, making him jump out of his skin, but she vanished just as quickly. Then he started seeing the ghosts that haunted the room, each of them looking completely hopeless, throwing themselves out the window one after another. The TV flickered on, showing Jack with his wife and daughter, a happy little family. But after his daughter died from illness, Jack could never climb out of his grief. To stop himself from thinking about her, he cut ties with his wife and walked out on the family. And when his elderly father got seriously ill, Jack never even went to visit. His father called him a man who only knew how to run away, a good-for-nothing. Under the room's relentless assault, Jack's head felt like it was going to split wide open. Then huge cracks tore through the walls, oozing blood. The whole scene reminded him of something straight out of his own novels, and he convinced himself it was all just a bad dream. All he had to do was wake up. After glancing at the floor plan on the door, Jack figured he only needed to cover 15 feet along the ledge to climb through the window of the next room. No time to waste. Jack started inching his way along the narrow ledge, hundreds of feet in the air, but he soon realized he'd gone way past 15 feet. That's when despair really hit him. There was no window up ahead, just an endless black drop. He had no choice but to stumble back the way he came. Just as he reached the window, a jumping ghost popped out and scared the hell out of him. Luckily, Jack grabbed hold of a ledge and made it safely back inside. He walked back to the floor plan on the door and saw that everything around 1408 had gone pitch black. Only his room was still on the map. Looking through the peephole, there was no hallway, just a solid wall. Then the lights in the room flickered and died. Jack fumbled around in the dark to turn on a lamp. While Jack was still shaking, his laptop in the bag made a little ping. He opened it up and somehow it had hooked onto Wi-Fi. Thrilled, Jack immediately video called his wife. But the moment she saw him, she was furious, saying he'd been gone for years and now he finally decided to pick up the phone. Jack told her he was trapped in a room and begged her to call the cops right away. While he was trying to explain, the sprinkler system suddenly burst open, soaking his laptop and shorting it out. That was the last straw. Jack lost it, grabbed a wooden post and started wailing on the sprinkler. In the middle of smashing it, a dark shape suddenly flashed past the heating vent. To figure out what was going on, Jack unscrewed the cover and crawled into the ducts, checking to see if someone had been screwing with him this whole time. But when he reached a bend, sure enough, there was someone lying motionless up ahead. Jack crawled over and gave the guy a poke. Turned out to be an old man, and he reacted violently. Jack apologized for waking him, but the old man wasn't about to let it go. He kept tailing Jack like a stalker. When the old man finally lunged and grabbed him, Jack had no choice but to kick him a couple of times and ended up killing him. He hadn't expected the guy's face to crumble apart like paper. When Jack got back to the room, the temperature had plunged. Every piece of furniture and every appliance was caked in ice, just to keep from freezing to death. Jack wrapped himself up in a blanket and sipped some liquor to warm up. Just as he was about to pass out from the cold, his wife's voice came through the laptop across the room. Jack crawled over and saw she was still on the call. She told him she was worried sick. Jack asked if she'd called the police. She said yes, that the cops were in room 1408 right now, but they told her the room was completely empty. No one there. Hearing that, Jack was floored. He hadn't realized the room could not only create hallucinations, but actually warp space itself. Then another Jack's face popped up on the screen, telling his wife to rush over to 1408 and save him. Jack saw right through the trick to lure his wife to her death and frantically shouted at her not to come. But no matter what he said, his wife couldn't hear a word of it. The Jack on the other screen was blocking him out, and then the imposter gave him a smug little wink. At that moment, the whole room started shaking violently. Huge cracks splitting open everywhere, and rain started pouring inside. In a daze, Jack realized the figures in the paintings were actually talking, and the sailboat in one of them had started moving. Just as he grabbed a stick to smash it, the painting erupted, gushing gallons of seawater and flooding the entire room. When Jack came to, he was lying on a beach. Passers-by saw he was soaked and called an ambulance. Soon his wife rushed over asking if he was okay. Jack was stunned. He asked her how he'd gotten out. She told him he'd hit his head on a surfboard and blacked out. Could everything in 1408 really have been nothing but a nightmare? The whole thing left Jack doubting what was real, but with the woman he loved right there beside him, he held on to her tight, not wanting to lose her again. Afterwards, he wrote up everything he'd lived through in 1408 and turned it into a novel, wanting to share the unforgettable, haunting story with the world. But when he walked into the publisher's office, he got a nasty shock. The editor was actually one of the employees from that hotel. Jack was stunned. At the same time, all the staff picked up clubs and started smashing the walls, tearing everything around them apart. When they broke through the walls and ripped off the wallpaper, room 1408 was right there underneath, hidden under the disguise the whole time. Jack had never left the room at all. Everything that had just happened was nothing more than a fantasy his mind had cooked up. He didn't want to face the pain buried deep inside him, and the room had exploited that very weakness, dragging him back from the edge only to shove him over it again, grinding him down past the breaking point over and over until he'd finally take his own life. Then, in the rubble, Jack saw his dead daughter walking toward him, calling out, "Daddy, Daddy!" It all felt so real. After a moment's hesitation, Jack pulled her into a tight hug, but that warm glow was snuffed out in a heartbeat. His daughter whispered one last sentence in his arms, suddenly stopped breathing, and crumbled into dust right there. The radio started playing again, like every ghost in the room was mocking him. When he finally looked over at it, the countdown was almost at 0. He'd actually survived the full hour, and the room had returned to normal. Jack glanced at the radio again, and that's when he completely fell apart. The numbers were rapidly resetting, and after a second, it was back to a fresh 60-minute countdown. That's right, the game was starting all over. The front desk called. Jack demanded to know why they didn't just kill him already. The voice told him they respected every guest's choice. He could relive this unforgettable hour again and again, or he could take advantage of their express checkout service. Jack glanced at the rope lying nearby and got the message loud and clear. A vision of himself hanging from a noose appeared in the mirror, nudging him to just end it. Jack answered the voice on the phone. "I'll kill myself, but not the way you're offering." Then he lit a bottle of liquor and hurled it into the bedroom. Moments later, the other guests heard the alarm and started evacuating, and Jack's wife came rushing up to the hotel below. As the oxygen in the room was burning away, Jack calmly rated the hotel's horror level.
I ward the Dolphin 10 skulls.
The reason he chose fire to take 1408 down was because he was afraid flames alone might not be enough to kill off a room that could regenerate itself. And in the end, Jack did die. But unlike the 56 victims before him, this time he took that horrifying room 1408 down with him.